They demolished my family's 80-year-old bridge with a bulldozer at 6 a.m. on a Tuesday, stood there filming on their phones, laughing while the stones my grandfather laid in 1943 crumbled into the creek. What they didn't know, I owned the only other road into their gated community. Every single one of those 85 houses, and I was about to turn their commute into a very expensive lesson about property rights. C. Darlene Pritchett, HOA president, real estate agent, professional bully, thought she could steamroll a quiet engineer because I wasn't the type to fight back. She was half right. I'm not the type to fight back. I'm the type to win. What would you do if neighbors destroyed something your grandfather built with his bare hands? Drop your revenge strategy in the comments. And before we dive in, where are you watching from? Drop your state or country below. Let's see how far this goes. My name is Garrett Sullivan, 54 years old, third-generation civil engineer, living on 127 acres in semi-rural Pennsylvania, 40 minutes outside Pittsburgh, the kind of place where you wake up to creek water hissing over limestone instead of traffic noise, where your morning coffee comes with the smell of wet oak leaves and diesel from a Dodge pickup that's older than most marriages. The property's been in my family since 1938. My grandfather, Pop Sullivan, bought it during the Depression and built everything himself, including in 1943, a stone and timber bridge over Blackwater Creek. It connected our land to Old Mill Road, the only route back then to 4 family farms. That bridge wasn't some weekend project. Pops pulled foundation stones from the creek bed, milled the timber himself, forged the iron brackets at the town blacksmith. It took him 8 months. I learned to fish under it as a kid, helped my dad replace planks when I was 16. Every time I drove over it, gravel crunching under my tires, I heard Pops's voice. Build something right. It outlasts you. I'm semi-retired now. Consulting gigs, some land lease income. Widowed, 2 years ago, daughter in Oregon. Quiet life. The bridge was the last thing I had from Pops. Then, 18 months ago, a developer built Meadowbrook Estates on the old Kowalski farm. 85 homes, $600,000 and up. Gated community with an HOA that thinks it runs the county. They needed a sewage easement across my land during construction. I negotiated, got paid $12,000, everything legal and recorded. Should have been the end of it. Then I met Darlene Pritchett, 62, real estate agent, Tesla Model X, bleached bob, monogrammed everything. Elected HOA president 3 months after moving in, and apparently decided her job was to remake the world in her image. April. She knocked on my door. No call, no warning. Handed me a certified letter. It demanded I remove my bridge in 30 days. Claimed it was an eyesore and a flood hazard per HOA, environmental study. I read it twice. Ma'am, that bridge is entirely on my property. Your HOA has zero authority here. She smiled like a kindergarten teacher correcting a slow child. Mr. Sullivan, we have documentation showing it's abandoned county infrastructure. We're asking you to comply with safety regulations. Your study is 4 pages from a landscaping company. There's not one engineer signature on it. The smile tightened. We'll follow up through proper channels. She left. I threw the letter away. Figured she'd give up. 1 week later, 6:04 a.m. I woke to a diesel engine roaring on my land. Ran outside in boxer shorts and boots. No time for a shirt hand. Saw a bulldozer ripping through my bridge. Stone cracking. Timber splashing into the creek. Dust and smoke everywhere. I screamed at the operator. He waved me off. Lady said, it's county demo. Got a work order. That's my bridge. He didn't stop. And then I saw them. 3 SUVs parked on my access road. Darlene and 2 HOA board members standing there filming on their phones. One of them laughing. I called 911. Hands shaking. The sheriff arrived 40 minutes later. Bridge was rubble. The deputy took a report. Said it was a civil matter. I'd have to sue. Darlene handed him a folder. As Sunday morning, officer, we removed a hazard. We actually saved the county a lawsuit. I stood there in my underwear, covered in dust, and realized she didn't see me as a person. Just an obstacle to bulldoze through. I walked back to my porch and sat. The smell of crushed limestone hung in the air. The creek ran muddy with debris, and I decided, if Darlene wants to play with property rights, I'll show her what a civil engineer knows about roads. Because I just remembered something very interesting about Old Mill Road. I hired a lawyer the next morning. Mitch Kowalski, local guy, does land disputes and the occasional DUI. We went to high school together. He took one look at the photos of my demolished bridge and said, Garrett, this is the most clear-cut property destruction case I've seen in 20 years. We filed 2 things. An emergency injunction to prevent further damage and a lawsuit for $178,000 in damages. That number wasn't random. $135,000 for reconstruction. $25,000 for historical value. $18,000 for emotional distress. The sheriff's report was frustratingly vague. Civil matter, no clear criminal intent. But the county building inspector confirmed what mattered. The bridge was 100% on my property, fully legal, and Darlene's crew had 0 permits for anything. Then Darlene's lawyers tried to get clever. They filed a counterclaim arguing my bridge had been in public use for 80 years. People drove over it to access Old Mill Road, so it should have become county property by now. Something called adverse possession. When Mitch read their filing, he actually laughed out loud. Garrett, they clearly didn't do their homework. Why not? Because adverse possession only works if the real owner abandoned the property or stopped maintaining it. You've got 30 years of receipts for bridge repairs in your filing cabinet. He was right. I'd kept everything. Every plank replacement, every bag of gravel, every can of wood sealant. My dad taught me that. He used to say, paper trail beats memory in court every single time. We submitted decades of maintenance records, photos of my private property signs, and tax documents showing the bridge was always listed as part of my assessed property value. The judge dismissed their counterclaim in 3 weeks flat. I won't lie, that felt good. But it was just round one. Darlene wasn't the type to back down, not even close. Her HOA doubled down and hired a Pittsburgh law firm, the kind with marble lobbies and lawyers, who bill $450 an hour just to read your email. They filed a motion claiming my lawsuit was frivolous and harassment, demanded I pay $50,000 in their legal fees for wasting everyone's time. Then came the settlement offer, hand-delivered by a paralegal in a suit that probably cost more than my truck. The terms: I dropped my lawsuit, they dropped theirs. And here's the kicker: they'll generously donate $5,000 to the local veterans fund in my grandfather's name. Mitch brought it to me at the diner, slid the paper across the table while I was halfway through a burger. It's a PR play, he said quietly. Makes them look reasonable in front of a judge. We tried to settle, Your Honor. We even offered charity in his grandfather's name. I stared at the number. $5,000. Mitch, my grandfather spent 8 months building that bridge with his hands. They tore it down in 40 minutes while filming it on their phones. And now they want to slap his name on a charity check and call it even. That's the play. I pushed the paper back. Tell them no. You sure? This could get expensive, I'm sure. That's when Darlene went nuclear. 2 days later, a friend forwarded me screenshots from Meadowbrook's private Facebook group. The HOA had over 200 members, and apparently I was the hot topic. Darlene's post read, "Local landowner blocking community safety improvements. Refuses to cooperate with flood mitigation efforts that could protect your families. Some people care more about old junk than their neighbors' well-being." Another post mentioned me running outside in my underwear and hinted I might be going through something after my wife's death. The comments piled on. Sounds unstable. Why? Is the county allowing this? Our property values are dropping because of one guy. It spread to next door within hours. Someone started a thread. Is Garrett Sullivan the problem with our neighborhood? I don't do social media. Never have. But watching strangers call me unstable, and selfish people who'd never met me, never heard my side, that stung more than I expected. Lyall called that night. "Garrett, you see what they're posting about you?" "Yeah." "You going to respond?" I was on my porch watching the sunset over the creek. The air smelled like incoming rain. That sharp, clean ozone smell mixed with mud from the bank. No. What? Why not? Because responding means I'm playing her game. And I'm not interested in Facebook wars. Lyall. Then what are you interested in? Winning. There was a pause. You got a plan? Working on it. I hung up and pulled out my old Rolodex. Yeah, I still have one. Actual paper cards in a spinning file. I'm 54. Sue me. I started flipping through names. Engineers I'd worked with over 30 years. Surveyors who owed me favors. County clerks who'd been around long enough to remember when handshake deals still meant something. People who knew where the skeletons were buried, figuratively speaking. The next morning, Rosalie Chen called. She works in the county planning office. 15 years, knows every permit application, every zoning variance, every backroom deal that slides through when nobody's watching. "Garrett," she said, voice barely above a whisper, "I shouldn't be telling you this." "Then don't," I said. "I don't want you getting in trouble." Too late. Listen, Darlene's been pushing hard for expedited approvals on some expansion plans for new community center, tennis courts, the whole 9 yards, and she's been getting them pushed through fast. Suspiciously fast. How fast? 90-day reviews getting done in 3 weeks. And here's the thing. Commissioner Todd Grisham is the one signing off on everything. I wrote the name down. Should I know him? He's Darlene's boyfriend. They bought a vacation condo together in Florida last year. Public record. Both names on the deed. I stopped writing. You're telling me a county commissioner is fast-tracking permits for his girlfriend's HOA? I'm telling you that property records don't lie. What you do with that information is up to you. Rosalie, I owe you dinner. Just be careful. These people have friends in high places. I hung up and smiled for the first time in days. Because people with friends in high places always make the same mistake. They think they're untouchable. And when you think you're untouchable, you get sloppy. I spent the next 2 days at the county clerk's office pulling every file I could find. Property records, easement agreements, utility right-of-ways, old survey maps from the 1940s that smelled like dust and yellowed paper. I'm a civil engineer. I've spent 3 decades reading blueprints and legal descriptions that would put most people to sleep. But that day, I was hunting. And I found something. Something big. But I didn't tell Mitch, didn't tell Lyle, didn't tell anyone. Because in poker, you don't show your cards until the pot's worth winning. Mitch called me Friday afternoon. Darlene's lawyers are pushing for a hearing next month. They want the judge to dismiss your case entirely and award them legal fees. Let them push. Garrett, you sound way too calm for someone about to get hit with a $50,000 judgment. I was standing at my window looking toward Meadowbrook in the distance. You could barely see it through the trees, but the streetlights were starting to flicker on as dusk settled in. Mitch, I need you to trust me on this. Trust you on what? Just keep filing motions. Keep them busy. I'm working on something. Working on what? I smiled. Insurance. What I didn't tell him, what I wasn't ready to tell anyone yet, was that I just discovered how to make Darlene Pritchett wish she'd never heard the name Sullivan. It all came down to one beautiful, legal, completely ironclad word: easement. I spent the next week buried in county records like a detective in a bad noir film. Except instead of whiskey and cigarettes, I had coffee in 3-ring binders that smelled like 1987. 3 full days at the clerk's office. Martha, the main clerk, stopped asking what I needed after day 2 and just started pulling document boxes before I walked in. You looking for something specific, Garrett, or just hate sunlight now? She asked on day 3. I told her a little of both, and she laughed. The kind of laugh that said she'd seen plenty of property feuds in her 30 years behind that counter and knew exactly how this would end. I pulled every document tied to Meadowbrook Estates, building permits, utility hookups, sewage approvals, environmental studies, zoning variances, created a spreadsheet, color-coded and cross-referenced like I was preparing for trial. My daughter would have been proud, or maybe concerned for my mental health. That's when I found the crack in Darlene's, Armour Meadowbrook's, sewage system. A private treatment plant serving all 80 homes had received conditional approval from the Pennsylvania Department of Environmental Protection back in 2023. That word conditional is important. It meant temporary approval pending final upgrades and inspection within 18 months. I checked the deadline. 14 months ago, they'd missed it. Then I found 2 extension requests. Both approved by the DEP regional office. Both with recommendation letters attached. And guess who signed those letters? Commissioner Todd Grisham, Darlene's boyfriend. I leaned back and the chair made that loud government building creak that echoes through rooms built during the Carter administration. Martha, I need copies of all this. She sighed. How many trees we killing today? I grinned. All of them. That night, I called Brianna Holt, my former intern, now an environmental engineer in Philadelphia with more credentials than I can pronounce. Garrett Sullivan. She answered over stadium noise. This better be good. Phillies are losing and you're interrupting my suffering. I explained the expired permit situation, and she whistled low through her teeth. If they're operating on an expired conditional permit, that's a violation. DEP won't catch it unless someone complains. But once it's flagged, mandatory inspection within 60 days. If the system fails, they could get shut down entirely. Residents would have to truck out sewage at $400 per household per month until repairs are done. Could take half a year. I asked if she could send me the complaint form. She paused. Garrett, you file this. You're going nuclear. You sure? I told her I'd think about it, but I didn't need to think long. The next day, Darlene made my decision for me. I got 3 county code enforcement citations delivered by certified mail, all dated the same day. First citation, unlicensed junk vehicle for my dad's 1959 F-150 sitting behind my barn. It had been there 15 years. Never bothered anyone. Second, unsecured burn pile for an ash heap from clearing brush. Third, illegal signage, because my no trespassing signs were apparently 2 inches too tall per township code. Each violation carried $150 per day. Fines if not fixed within 10 days. I called the code enforcement officer, a nervous kid named Tyler who couldn't have been older than 24. Tyler, I've lived here my whole life. Why am I suddenly getting citations for stuff that's been here for years? He hesitated, then dropped his voice. Mr. Sullivan, I was told to drive by your property daily and document violations. I'm just doing my job. I asked who gave the order. He wouldn't say, but he didn't have to. Only one person had that kind of pull with the township. I took photos of the citations and texted them to Lyle. He called back immediately, furious. Garrett, nobody else in this township's gotten a citation in 6 months. This is targeted harassment. I told him I knew, and I told him what I was planning to do about it. There was a long silence on his end. Then he started laughing. That deep, wheezing laugh he gets when something's either brilliant or completely insane. You're really going to do it? He asked. Yes, then I want a front row seat when this blows up. That afternoon, I filled out Brianna's DEP complaint form, attached copies of the expired permit and Grisham's recommendation letters, and dropped it in the mail. Then I called Mitch and told him to file a code enforcement countercomplaint, harassment, selective enforcement, abuse of authority. While I had him on the phone, I asked him to pull one more document for me, the original plat map for Old Mill Road. Dating back to 1952, he asked why. I told him I'd explain later, but I had a hunch about something that might change the entire game. He said he'd have it by end of week. I hung up and stood on my porch, watching the sun drop behind the tree line. The air smelled like fresh-cut grass from a neighbor's lawn and the faint diesel exhaust from Highway 29, a mile away. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear Meadowbrook's landscaping crew running leaf blowers, that high-pitched whine that never quite stops in gated communities. I smiled because in about 60 days, the DEP was going to show up at Darlene's door with clipboards and bad news, and she'd have no idea I was the one who invited them. Sometimes the best revenge isn't loud. It's paperwork filed in triplicate with a government agency that doesn't care who your boyfriend is. The code enforcement citations kept coming. Every 3 days, like clockwork, Tyler, the nervous code officer, would show up with a new violation. My mailbox was 6 inches too far from the road. My graveled driveway had excessive dust concerns. My firewood stack was visible from public right-of-way and constitutes visual blight. Each citation carried the same threat, $150 per day, if not remedied within 10 days. I fixed the first few just to avoid the hassle. But by the 5th citation, I stopped. Called Mitch instead. "This is harassment," he said flatly. "Document everything. We'll bury them in court." But court takes time, and Darlene knew it. She was bleeding me with 1,000 small cuts, hoping I'd give up before the real fight even started. Then I got an unexpected visitor. Sunday afternoon, a man in his early 50s knocked on my door, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. "Mr. Sullivan, my name's Kent Ashford. I live in I need to talk to you about Darlene Pritchett." I invited him in, made coffee, and waited. Kent sat at my kitchen table, hands wrapped around his mug like he needed the warmth. "I'm the HOA treasurer," he said quietly. "Elected position, and I've been documenting financial irregularities for 6 months." He pulled a folder from his bag and spread documents across the table. Bank statements, invoices, meeting minutes with dates that didn't match. Darlene's been paying herself consulting fees. $4,000 a month. It's not in the bylaw. Nobody voted on it. In this he tapped an invoice dated the day after my bridge was demolished. "She used HOA funds to pay for your bridge demolition. $28,000. Listed it as emergency infrastructure repair. No board vote. She falsified the meeting minutes afterward to make it look legitimate." I stared at the numbers. $28,000 of other people's money spent to destroy my family's bridge because she wanted it gone. "Kent, why are you showing me this?" He met my eyes. "Because what she did to you is wrong, and because she'll fine my wife $500 for planting the wrong color roses. I'm tired of living under a tyrant." I asked if he understood the risk. If Darlene found out he'd leaked financial records to me, she'd make his life hell. He smiled grimly. "She already does. At least this way, I'm fighting back." I made copies of everything and shook his hand. "You're a good man, Kent." He shrugged. "I'm just an accountant who hates fraud." After he left, I sat with the documents and started piecing together the pattern. The expired septic permit, Todd Grisham's signed recommendation letters, the falsified HOA minutes, the embezzlement. It wasn't just about my bridge anymore. Darlene and her boyfriend had built a little empire of corruption, and they'd gotten away with it because nobody had bothered to look closely until now. I picked up my phone and called Andrea Walsh, a local investigative journalist who'd written a few solid pieces about county corruption over the years. "Andrea, it's Garrett Sullivan. I've got a story for you." She sounded interested but cautious. "About the bridge dispute. I read about that." I told her it was bigger, much bigger. "How about county commissioners taking money from developers? HOA presidents embezzling and committing fraud. Environmental permits being covered up." Long pause. "Mr. Sullivan, if you're serious, I need documentation." I told her I had 400 pages of it. "When can we meet?" We met the next day at a diner halfway to Pittsburgh. I brought the binder. She brought a recorder and a legal pad. For 2 hours, I walked her through everything. The bridge demolition, the code enforcement harassment, Grisham's conflict of interest, the expired septic permit, Kent's financial records showing embezzlement and fraud. She took notes, asked sharp questions, requested copies of key documents. When I finished, she sat back and exhaled slowly. "This is a legitimate scandal," she said, "but I need to verify some of this independently before I can publish. Give me a week." I told her to take whatever time she needed, but to be careful. Darlene had friends in the county government. Andrea smiled. "Mr. Sullivan, I've been doing this for 15 years. I know how to protect my sources." She published 5 days later. The headline ran online first. "County Commissioner, linked to developer and land. Dispute, ethics questions raised." The article laid out Grisham's relationship with Darlene, the expedited permits, the campaign contributions from Meadowbrook's HOA PAC, With Darlene listed as treasurer, it didn't mention the embezzlement yet. Andrea was holding that for a follow-up once she verified Kent's documents independently. But the damage was immediate. The article got picked up by a Pittsburgh TV station. By that evening, news vans were parked outside the county courthouse. Grisham released a statement denying wrongdoing, but the county ethics board announced an investigation within 48 hours. My phone started ringing. Other reporters wanting interviews. Township supervisors suddenly interested in my code enforcement complaints. Even a few Meadowbrook residents reaching out to apologize. I didn't answer most of the calls. Just sat on my porch watching the sun set over the creek and smiled. Because for the first time since that bulldozer showed up, Darlene wasn't controlling the story anymore. I was, and the best part, she had no idea how much more ammunition I still had. The road, the expired easement, the debt complaint working its way through the bureaucracy. I was just getting started. Lyle texted me that night. "You magnificent bastard. She's spiraling." I texted back, "Good." The media firestorm around Grisham lasted 3 days before the real bombshell dropped. Andrea called me Tuesday morning, voice buzzing with energy. "Garrett, I verified Kent's documents. The embezzlement story runs tomorrow, but I wanted to give you a heads. It's going to get ugly." I thanked her and hung up. Then I called Mitch. "It's time," I said. "Time to show them what I really own." Wednesday morning, while Andrea's embezzlement article was setting the internet on fire, Mitch filed 2 documents with the county. First, formal notice that I was withdrawing public access to Old Mill Road, effective in 30 days. Second, notification that the utility easement Meadowbrook had been using for sewage and power lines across my property had expired due to a clerical error in the original agreement, and I was not renewing it. Both documents were public record. Both were completely legal, and both landed like grenades in the middle of Darlene's already burning world. My phone rang within an hour. County Engineer's Office, sounding panicked. "Mr. Sullivan, we're reviewing your filing about Old Mill Road. Our records show this as a public road." I explained calmly that their records were wrong. The road had never been formally deeded to the county, and I had the 1952 survey documents to prove it. Long silence on the other end, then the sound of papers shuffling frantically. "Sir, if you close that road, Meadowbrook Estates loses its secondary emergency access route. Fire department response time would triple during rush hour." I told him that wasn't my problem. I was simply exercising my legal rights as a private property owner. He said he'd need to escalate this and hung up so fast. I heard the phone rattle against the receiver. Then the calls started flooding in. Fire chief, township supervisors, county planning director, everyone. Suddenly, very concerned about public safety and emergency access and community welfare. I gave them all the same answer. The road is private, always has been, and I'm within my rights to restrict access. If Meadowbrook wants continued use, they're welcome to negotiate an easement agreement at fair market rates. One supervisor actually sputtered. "But Mr. Sullivan, you can't just..." I cut him off politely. "Actually, sir, I can check the deed records." By noon, the story had leaked to reporters. Andrea called again, barely containing her excitement. "Garrett, is it true you own the only alternate route into Med..." I confirmed it. She laughed. That sharp, disbelieving laugh journalists get when a story gets better than they imagined. "This is incredible. They destroyed your bridge, and you own their backup road. That's almost poetic." I told her, "It gets better. Their sewage and power easement also expired, meaning they've been running utilities across my land illegally for months." She asked if I was really going to cut off their access. I said I hadn't decided yet, but fair compensation for use of my property seemed reasonable. "What's fair compensation?" she asked. I leaned back in my chair, heard that satisfying creak of old wood. A rebuilt bridge would be a good start. The panic inside Meadowbrook was immediate and total. Emergency HOA meeting called for Thursday night. Kent texted me updates in real time. Residents shouting, some demanding Darlene resign, others talking about lawsuits, a few already calling real estate agents to list their homes before property values tanked. The meeting recording leaked to me. By Friday morning, probably from 3 different sources, I sat in my truck in the driveway listening to it, windows down, afternoon sun, warm, on my arm, and the smell of cut hay drifting in from a neighbor's field. Darlene's voice came through shaky and defensive, trying to calm 85 panicking homeowners. "This is a legal technicality. Our lawyers are handling it. There's no real threat." But a resident cut her off, voice shaking with fury. "You told us everything was handled. Now we find out our president embezzled HOA funds and we might lose sewage service." Another voice, older and frightened. "My mother is 78. What happens if there's a medical emergency and ambulances can't get through because you pissed off the wrong neighbor?" Darlene had no good answers, just stammering excuses and empty promises. And me, I sat on my porch that Friday evening, watching the sun sink behind the trees, the sky going orange and purple like a bruise, the creek making that gentle rushing sound it always makes when the water's high. I felt something I hadn't felt in months. Control, not revenge yet, just the simple, Satisfying knowledge that I held every card that mattered. Infrastructure is power. Roads, utilities, access. These aren't luxuries, they're necessities. And I owned them all. My phone buzzed. Text from Lyle. Bro Meadowbrook, Facebook group is melting down. This is better than any poker game we've ever played. I smiled and typed back. Game's not over yet. Now comes the fun part. Saturday morning, my kitchen became a war room. 5 people showed up by 9 a.m., and the smell of fresh coffee mixed with the nervous energy of people about to plan something that could either be brilliant or completely backfire. Mitch sat at the head of my kitchen table with legal pads stacked like ammunition. Lyle leaned against the counter, grinning like a kid on Christmas. Rosalie from the county planning office brought her laptop and a flash drive that she definitely wasn't supposed to have. Judge Harlan Meeks, retired, 76. Still sharp as a taxat, reading through documents with glasses perched on his nose. And Brianna Holt, my former intern turned environmental engineer, had driven up from Philadelphia with a folder full of DEP regulations thick enough to kill someone. All right, Mitch said, clicking his pen in that rhythm he does when he's thinking. Let's talk endgame. Garrett's got leverage. The road, the expired easement, public sympathy, Darlene, under investigation for embezzlement. Question is, what do you actually want? I'd been thinking about this for days. Not revenge. Not to hurt innocent people. Justice, I want my bridge rebuilt, I said. Historically accurate, proper materials, done right. I want a written apology from the HOA, published in the local paper. I want fair compensation for the easement going forward. Market rate, not whatever lowball number they'll try. And I want Darlene Pritchett out of the HOA presidency. The room went quiet for a second. Then Judge Meeks looked at me over his glasses. Son, that's all reasonable, but here's what you need to understand. If you push too hard, you become the villain. Judges and juries remember vindictive winners. You need to give them a way to save face. Barely an inch, but something. Lyle snorted. Judge, she demolished his grandfather's bridge while filming it and laughing. How much face does she deserve? The judge smiled slightly. Legally. None strategically. Just enough that Garrett walks away looking like a hero instead of a bully. I asked how we do that. Brianna jumped in first. The DEP complaint I helped you file is already in the system. They'll inspect Meadowbrook's sewage treatment plant within 60 days. When Gwinnett fails inspection, the state mandates upgrades or shuts them down. That's not you being vindictive. That's bureaucracy doing what it does. Rosalie nodded. Same with the ethics investigation on Grisham. That's official now. Once those findings go public, it shows a pattern of corruption that has nothing to do with personal revenge. You're just the citizen who noticed and reported it. Lyle grinned. So you're letting the government be the bad guy while you sit back looking reasonable. I love it. Mitch pulled out a draft settlement proposal. 40 pages, exhibits attached. The kind of document that makes normal people's eyes glaze over, but makes lawyers weep with joy. Here's the play. We request a public mediation hearing at the Township Supervisors meeting. It's recorded. It's open to the public. And Darlene can't hide behind her lawyers in some private conference room. You present your terms in front of residents, media, everyone. If she accepts, great. If she refuses, you look reasonable, and she looks like the problem. I liked that. Sunshine is the best disinfectant, as they say. Judge Meeks tapped the document. Terms need to be specific. No vague language she can weasel out of later. Brianna suggested numbers for the easement renewal. $500 per month for 20 years. That's fair market rate for commercial utility access in rural Pennsylvania. I checked 3 comparable properties. For the bridge reconstruction, you get bids from 3 licensed contractors, and the HOA pays the median bid. No negotiation, no substitutions. Mitch wrote it down. And the apology, I thought carefully. It needs to name me personally. Name my grandfather. Acknowledge that the demolition was unauthorized and wrong. And it runs in the Township Gazette for 2 consecutive weeks. Plus gets posted at the Meadowbrook main entrance where everyone can see it. Rosalie grinned. Oh, Darlene's going to hate that. I shrugged. She should have thought about that before she brought the bulldozer. Then we talked risks. What if Darlene flat out refused? Mitch explained I could legally close the road and terminate the easement. But it would hurt innocent residents and public opinion could turn against me. You don't want to be the guy who blocked Grandma's ambulance, he said bluntly. Judge Meeks suggested a compromise. Close the road to regular traffic, but grant an exception for emergency services. Fire trucks, ambulances, police, they still have access. Soccer moms and commuters, they take the long way around Highway 29. That pressures the HOA without endangering lives. Brianna added, same with utilities. You don't shut them off immediately. You notify them the easement expired and give 30 days to negotiate renewal. They ignore you. Then you pull the plug. We spent another hour on contingencies. What if residents start a petition? What if the media spins this against me? By the time everyone left around noon, I had a plan that felt bulletproof and a binder so thick you could use it as a doorstop. Lyle was the last one out. He clapped my shoulder at the door. Garrett, I've known you 30 years. Never seen you like this. I asked what he meant. He grinned, focused, a little scary. Honestly, remind me never to piss you off. I laughed. Lyle, I'm not scary. I'm just an engineer who actually read the contracts. After they left, I stood at my kitchen window looking toward. You could barely see it through the trees, but I knew it was there. Those perfect streets and matching mailboxes and the HOA president who thought rules didn't apply to her. The house smelled like coffee grounds and old paper. That musty scent legal documents get when they've been photocopied too many times. Outside, a crow landed on my porch railing and cocked its head at me like it was asking what came next. I smiled. What came next was simple. I was going to give Darlene Pritchett exactly one chance to do the right thing. And when she didn't take it because people like her, never do I was going to show her what happens when you tear down a bridge owned by someone who actually knows how infrastructure works. The DS world was collapsing, and desperate people do desperate things. I should have seen it coming. Monday night, 2:30 a.m., I woke to chainsaws ripping through the darkness. Not distant, close, on my land. I grabbed my phone, pulled on boots over sweatpants, and ran outside. Two men I'd never seen were cutting down oaks along Old Mill Road's boundary, dropping 60-year-old trees across the road in clouds of sawdust. The smell of fresh-cut wood and chainsaw exhaust filled the air. Mixed with that sharp ozone scent night air gets in Pennsylvania spring, I started filming as I ran toward them, shouting over the noise. This is private property. What the hell are you doing? The guy running the chainsaw looked up, saw me, yelled something to his partner. They dropped tools and sprinted for a white rental pickup. I got close enough to film faces, got the truck in frame as they peeled out, gravel spraying, called 911 immediately, hands shaking, told the dispatcher vandals were destroying my property, gave the location, said I had video evidence. She said a deputy was 20 minutes out. I walked the damage with my phone flashlight. 4 trees down, 2 completely blocking the road, 2 more halfway cut and leaning dangerously. If I hadn't woken up, they'd have finished, and Old Mill Road would have been impassable for weeks. The message was clear. If they couldn't negotiate access to my road, they'd make sure nobody could use it. Destroy the leverage. I stood there surrounded by sawdust and the sound of settling branches, feeling my jaw tighten. This wasn't a legal fight anymore. This was war. Deputy Collins arrived 40 minutes later. Same guy who'd handled my bridge demolition. He walked the scene, took photos, watched my video 3 times. Garrett, this is criminal mischief, minimum, possibly conspiracy. You pressing charges? I asked if he could ID them from the footage. He zoomed in on a frame showing the truck's rental company logo. I'll run it down. Then he pointed at something I'd missed. A work glove dropped in the rush to escape. He bagged it. Might get prints. Watch your back. Garrett, you've made enemies. Collins called the next morning, ran the rental, paid for with a credit card belonging to Marcus Pritchett. I asked who that was. Darlene Pritchett's son, 29, works in her real estate office. There it was. I asked if we could charge him. Collins hesitated. We can prove he rented the truck. That's it. Unless one of those guys testifies, Darlene ordered it. We can't tie her directly. I asked his advice. Honestly, save it. If you press charges now, it becomes a criminal case. Ties up your civil suit for months. But as leverage in negotiations, it's dynamite. I called Mitch immediately. He listened, then started chuckling. That dark lawyer laugh. That means someone screwed up badly. Garrett, don't use this yet. Save it for mediation. When Darlene's sitting across from you in front of the township media, everyone you calmly present this video. You don't even accuse her. Just explain that her son rented the truck used to commit a crime on your property. Let people draw their own conclusions. I smiled for the first time since the chainsaws woke me. Chess, not checkers. Mitch agreed. And right now, you're 3 moves ahead. But Darlene wasn't finished. Over the next week, things got weirder. Anonymous calls someone breathing, then hanging up. 5 times in 3 days. My truck got egged while parked at the diner. Yolk dried into the paint in the sun. Then Thursday morning, I found a dead raccoon on my porch, positioned deliberately, clearly left as a message. None of it was prosecutable, but it was designed to scare me, make me back down. Lyle came over that evening, saw the raccoon situation, shook his head. She's spiraling. This is what bullies do when they lose. They lash out.
I asked if it would escalate. He met my eyes and said, probably, but you've got cameras, documentation, law on your side. She's got desperation. I know which hand I'd rather hold. Friday, I attended the township's supervisors meeting. I sat in the back, said nothing, but my presence was noticed. During public comment, 3 Meadowbrook residents complained about me holding the community hostage and endangering public safety. One even suggested eminent domain to seize my road. The supervisors asked if I wanted to respond. I stood, kept my voice level, and said, I'm not holding anyone hostage. I'm exercising property rights. If Meadowbrook wants access, they can negotiate through my attorney. But I'm not giving away what I own for free, especially not to people who destroyed my family's bridge. One supervisor nodded. Hey, Mr. Sullivan, we're scheduling a public mediation hearing 2 weeks from today. Walking to my truck, I spotted Darlene's Tesla 3 spaces over. She sat in the driver's seat, staring at me through the windshield. We locked eyes. She didn't look angry anymore. She looked terrified. Good. In 2 weeks, in front of everyone, I'd lay out exactly what she'd done, what it cost, and what it would take to fix. And there'd be nowhere left to hide. The final evidence the week before mediation, everything accelerated. Sunday afternoon, Kent knocked on my door looking like he'd aged 5 years overnight. Garrett, we need to talk. Now, I let him in, made coffee neither of us drank, and waited. He pulled out a laptop and a stack of documents still warm from the printer. I got removed as HOA treasurer Friday. Darlene called an emergency board vote, said I was creating unnecessary conflict. 3 of her cronies voted me out. But before they locked me out of the accounts, I downloaded everything. 2 years of bank statements, every transaction, every invoice. He turned the screen toward me. Highlighted line items told a story that made my stomach turn. Darlene had been paying herself consulting fees, $4,000 a month for 18 months, $72,000 total. Then came vendor payments to family businesses, all inflated not. A conservative estimate, Kent said quietly. She's funneled about $200,000 out of HOA reserves into family pockets. I stared at the numbers, feeling that cold anger when you realize someone's corruption goes deeper than you imagined. Kent tried going to the DA. They called it a civil matter, no prosecution. Darlene had documented everything as a business expenses. She was smart, corrupt, but smart. Kent met my eyes. I'm bringing it to you. You're the only person fighting her and actually winning. I called Mitch immediately, put him on speaker. Sell me here. After Kent walked through the documents, Mitch whistled low. This is textbook self-dealing and breach of fiduciary duty. HOA members can sue her personally. And Garrett, this destroys what's left of her credibility before mediation. Kent didn't hesitate to testify or go public. Andrea Walsh verified the evidence. By Wednesday, the article dropped. A Meadowbrook HOA president accused of self-dealing. Documents show suspicious payments to family. By noon, Meadowbrook's Facebook group was melting down. Residents demanded her resignation. The DA office suddenly decided to review the matter. And Darlene, total silence. Thursday night, Kent texted me about an emergency HOA meeting. 70 residents packed the room. Darlene tried defending herself. Nobody bought it. The board voted to remove her as president effective immediately. Residents voted to suspend her membership and launch a full audit. Kent's final text said it all. She walked out. People shouting the whole way to her car, it's over. I sat on my porch reading those texts as dusk settled. The creek rushing in the distance. Lyle called, laughing. Hey, did you see? Hey. She's finished. They're talking criminal charges and mediations Friday. She's showing up with nothing, but I wasn't after her humiliation. I was after my bridge. I called Mitch. A Friday's mediation. I'm not going to gloat or twist the knife. I just want my bridge rebuilt and to move on with my life. The mediation Friday night, the township municipal building was packed beyond capacity. Over 200 people crammed inside, 3 TV crews filming live. I sat with Mitch. Across from us, Darlene and a rookie lawyer. She looked diminished. No Tesla keys, no designer anything. Just someone who'd run out of road. Supervisor Chen opened the hearing. I stood, no notes needed. I'd lived this story for months. Photos of the bridge appeared on screen. April 16th, 6:04 a.m., Meadowbrook HOA President Darlene Pritchett ordered this bridge demolished. Built by my grandfather in 1943. Destroyed without permission, without permits, without authority. The bulldozer photo appeared. Darlene and the board, watching, filming, laughing. The room fell silent. I showed the Facebook posts, the code enforcement citations, the chainsaw sabotage video. The crowd murmured as Darlene's face went pale. I haven't pressed charges because I'm not interested in revenge. I want justice. Then I revealed the deed to Old Mill Road. Their easement had expired 14 months ago. I could shut down access and utilities tomorrow. But I won't, I said. Because I'm not angry at the innocent residents. I laid out the terms. Meadowbrook pays $78,000 for damages, funds the reconstruction, publishes a written apology, signs a new easement with monthly payments, and all harassment ends. You thought you could bulldoze a quiet engineer because I wouldn't fight back. You were half right. I didn't fight back. I fought smart. The room erupted. After recess, the interim board accepted every single term. Patterson, their acting president, even apologized publicly. Darlene had nothing left to say except I acted in what I believed were the community's best interests. It was over. Outside, the night air was cool and clean. Lyle grinned. Mitch clapped my shoulder. Garrett, in 30 years of law, I've never seen someone dismantle an opponent that thoroughly without raising their voice. I looked up at the stars and said, I didn't dismantle her. She dismantled herself. I just showed everyone the receipts. The rebuild, the settlement was signed within a week. The written apology ran in the Gazette. Bridge reconstruction began in early June with Vernon, a stonemason who understood history. We used creek stones like Pops had done. By July, I hosted a community stone setting day. 67 people showed up. Families, kids, even Meadowbrook residents who wanted to fix what their HOA had broken. Kids painted decorative stones. A little girl asked why the bridge mattered so much. I told her my grandfather built it so people could help each other. And that's what bridges are for. The dedication happened in September. A plaque was installed. Sullivan Bridge, built 1943 by William Pops Sullivan, rebuilt 2025 by the community. My granddaughter ran across laughing. And that sound, joy mixed with the creek's rush, was when I knew we'd done it right. The legacy, the bigger impact, came later. I established the Pops Sullivan Trade Scholarship, $5,000 a year for local students pursuing trades or engineering, funded with $100,000 from the settlement and my own savings. The first recipient was Kent's daughter. She said watching her dad stand up gave her courage to speak out. That hit me harder than I expected. Meadowbrook reformed, electing a new board, publishing monthly financials, and bringing transparency. The county updated its systems. Old Mill Road got an official historical marker. Darlene moved away 3 months after mediation. I don't think about her much anymore. 6 months after the dedication, on a cold March morning, I sat on my porch, coffee in hand, watching the sunrise. My phone buzzed. A text from Patterson. Mr. Sullivan, spring potluck is Saturday. You're invited as guest of honor. I smiled. I'll bring potato salad. Live on. Later, I walked to the bridge, ran my hand over the stones. A pickup truck crossed. The driver waved. I waved back. This was what Pops meant about building things that last. Not just bridges of stone and timber, but bridges of trust and community. Call to action. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever dealt with an out-of-control HOA, corrupt board, or a neighbor who thought they were untouchable? Drop your story in the comments. If you're in a battle like mine, tell us where you're stuck. This community has your back. If you loved watching justice happen, hit that subscribe button and ring the bell. Share this with someone who needs to see that when you're on the right side of the law and the deed, you can win. Next time, a landlord tries to evict a tenant for unauthorized repairs, but the tenant is a licensed contractor and the building has 47 code violations. You won't believe how this ends. That's a wrap for today's episode. If you enjoyed watching Karma in Action, smash that like button, drop your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe so you won't miss the next HOA meltdown.